I'm a counseling psychologist and a wellness coach. Welcome to Well at Life, where we focus on your overall well-being so that you can do well at life. In this part of our video series, we are going to focus on emotional wellness. Now, what is emotional wellness? Well, emotions are part of our whole human experience. So, experiencing a wide range of emotions such as anger, sadness, disappointment, jealousy, joy, happiness, bewilderment is really so unique to us humans. But emotions are not there to direct our lives. It's just there to inform us about something that is happening within ourselves. So it cannot change our personalities or our temperaments or who we are. Our emotions cannot sabotage us. It cannot hold us hostage. It cannot own us. We own our emotions. So saying, I am angry, is not really correct, because that makes you sound like you're an emotion instead of a human. But saying, I feel angry, that is more correct, because that gives us information about an emotion that you are experiencing in the present moment. One of many that you are going to experience right throughout your day. We also tend to classify our emotions as good or bad, or negative or positive. But again, that is not true, because emotions just are. Emotions on their own means nothing. We need our thinking brain to give a value to an emotion. And by that I mean that your automatic subconscious thought processes gives you a creation called emotion in response to a situation. So you are actually just responding to a thought that happened, not really to an emotion. And once that emotion has been created, that then leads to some type of action or some type of behavior. So let's have a closer look at what this thought, emotion, action cycle might look like. I'm going to give you the following example. Let's have a closer look at this thought, emotion, action cycle. You make a mistake at work. Your supervisor draws your attention to it. Your automatic thought is, she doesn't like me. She's only looking for mistakes. This then leads you to feel nervous and defensive. The next day, you are so nervous about your work performance that you make another mistake. You think to yourself, I'm no good at my job. Or, my colleagues think I'm useless, which makes you feel sad. You avoid going to the tea room on your lunch break, rather spending your time eating alone. After a few days, you feel lonely, isolated, and without support. This leads you to feeling depressed and discouraged. You have trouble sleeping at night and feel tired, tearful, and irritable during the day. You think that no one cares about you as a person, that you are worthless. So you can see that this negative thought, emotion, action cycle can really quickly spiral into full-blown depression. So therefore it's very important that you take the time to really examine your initial thought process before you are overwhelmed by negative emotion. And this is how we do it. So yes, you can see that once you start looking at the evidence and really keep a cool and clear head about it, you can even write it down if you want to, then you will find that you have evidence that oppose that initial thought. And you can then easily replace it by something that is more fact-based and less emotion-based. So yes, let's go back to our example. So if you look at the response that you give to your supervisor, you will see now that if you just listen more carefully to the advice, and if you take a second look at what you did wrong, then you will find that you can learn from your mistake. And you can even ask your colleagues for guidance and some more advice for your future reference. So now you took a negative situation or something that you perceived as being negative, and you really put it into something positive that you can learn from. This, of course, will give you more self-confidence and more confidence in your work performance. And it will also make you feel more supported by your colleagues. But I just want to say that this process that I'm describing to you now of how you can examine this cycle is not there for you to, mash your negative feelings into positive ones or faking a positive outlook. It's not about, always being so upbeat and happy and always only having positive thoughts. It just means that you teach yourself and that you practice to have more balanced thinking so that you can really even out the scale between being negative and being positive. Okay, let's have a quick look at emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence just means that you are aware of your own emotions and that you can express and process it in a logical and a reasonable way. And you are also aware of other people's emotions. So this means that you have emotional intelligence when you can make a distinction between what you are feeling and experiencing and what someone else is feeling and experiencing, and that you can keep some good established emotional boundaries between what is yours, what is your emotions, and what is someone else's emotions. So you know where yours end and where someone else's start. But sometimes these boundaries are not well established, and that can lead to problems within how you relate to other people and how you relate to emotions. Now let's look at two of these emotion management styles that can be problematic. The first one is the emotional bucket holder. Now let's look at a scenario. You have a lunch date with a friend and you're really looking forward to it because you anticipate having a great time with your friend. You get to the restaurant, your friend is sitting there and you can see that she is very upset and very angry. So she starts telling you right off the bat what her problem is with her husband, the way he behaved towards her made her feel very unloved and very unappreciated. And as she rants on and on and on about her husband and everything he did wrong, you can feel your happy feeling dissipating. And by the end of lunch, you are feeling just as angry and upset as she is. So you go home, but you can't get her and her whole problem and all the emotions that goes with it. You can't get that out of your head. So you keep on worrying about her well-being. And that carries on for a few hours. Then the next morning you decide to phone her and just share your worries that you have with her. But she's very upbeat and chirpy and says, no, once she spoke to you, she felt so much better and she had a wonderful evening with her husband. Everything is well. Can you see that you were holding this emotional bucket into which she dumped all her negative feelings and all her venting? You kept this for her and you took responsibility for this emotional bucket while she went off and had a wonderful time with her husband. in actual fact, you were her emotional dumping ground. Now, why do we do that? Why do we hold this bucket for someone else? Well, it can be that you are a bit unsure about your own emotional boundaries, that you tend to think that your emotions are not important enough or deep enough or strong enough to express. So now you actually adopt someone else's emotions and you carry their emotions for them. It can also be that you're a people pleaser. You want other people to know that you feel empathy and that you really are with them inside this emotion. But the problem with these undefined emotional boundaries are that you end up being much more emotional and much more upset about someone else's emotion than you would be with your own emotions. So yes, you have to keep that boundaries in place. The second emotion management style that can really be problematic in your relationship with others is that of being an emotion fixer. Now, emotion fixers are really scared of emotion. They think that the expression of emotions such as anger or grief can really mean that you're out of control or that you are negative. And the first thing that they tend to do is they want to fix that faulty emotion. So they rush into everything with advice and with problem-solving skills. And at times they can not even give you a chance to really finish your sentence or to express your feelings, because they're so eager to just get away from it that they hijack the whole conversation and they say things like, it can't really be that bad, or if you just stop thinking about it, you'll feel better. Just realize that this is really their problem, not yours. They have not learned how to deal with and express emotions, and that's why it scares them so much. So much so that they will rather make jokes about it, or they will change the subject and they will reroute the whole conversation just so that you don't have to talk about emotions. So yes, how do we fix our emotional intelligence, or how do we nurture our emotional intelligence? Well, first off, by raising our self-awareness of really being consciously connected to our emotions, to be comfortable sitting with our own emotions, naming our own emotions, because what you know, you cannot fear. So it's better to really come to grips with what you are feeling and being able to name it and identify it. Because once you can do that, then you really have a choice. You can either sit with the emotion or you can let it go. You also have to be very clear of who is the owner of the emotion. Are you really feeling the emotion, or are you adopting someone else's emotion to make them feel better? And here I just want to say, stop being an emotional sponge. So you will really, once you have more self-awareness, you will know when you are playing the emotional mop. Then, of course, you also have to have clear emotional boundaries. Now, this doesn't happen overnight, but the more that you learn about your own emotions, the more that you learn how to name your emotions and have an emotional vocabulary, then you will know how to set boundaries of what is your responsibility, what do you have to care for in your life, what emotions are you experiencing, and what is someone else's responsibility. Because remember, you can only be responsible for your own emotions. You cannot absorb someone else's and you cannot fix someone else's. And then lastly, you also really need to identify the underlying need for this pleasing or fixing behavior. And here you have to have a dialogue with yourself by asking questions like, where does this underlying need come from? Do I need to be needed? Does it make me feel more important, more valid, more needed? Why am I so scared of emotions and of emotional expression? Does it trigger some type of trauma or unpleasant experience in my past or in my present life? Why do I fear emotions like anger or grief? And this you really have to sit and talk through with yourself. And if you find that this is difficult, that you cannot identify your own emotions, or that you start to feel overwhelmed when you think about this, then it's really time to make an appointment with a mental health care worker, like a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a registered counselor, and really start working and identifying and connecting with your own feelings so that you can relate and connect with other people. Now, one of the best ways that I found myself to express and manage my emotions is through the practice of journaling. Now, this is again something that you need to make time for. And believe me, it doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be these long essays. You are not going to be marked down for spelling or grammar mistakes. So yes, use something like journaling to really come into contact with your own emotions. Now, just a few things about journaling and why I find it such an extremely powerful tool in expressing my emotions. First off, you cannot be passive and uncaring in your journaling, because you are journaling about yourself. You are journaling about your own emotional process and your own experiences. So this really draws you into your own life and being more aware of who you are. Journaling is also a wonderful vehicle of getting a bit of emotional distance, because you literally, what's going on in your head and your heart is literally put on paper. So there's a bit of distance. You can see the bigger picture, so to say. So this is really something that gives you that freedom to express yourself and to get that distance from your own emotions. It also gives you emotional movement, because as you write and you page back to previous entries that you made and you read through that, you come to new perspective. You really get that bird's eye view of what is going on in your life and how this has an impact on your emotions. You also learn about your own thinking patterns, and you can actually spot the faulty thinking errors that you make in how you go about your life. And of course, hindsight is always 2020. Then you can really find some solutions. You will find that as you keep on journaling, new solutions, new perspectives will come up, and you will be absolutely astonished that after a couple of weeks, You can see this movement. You can see this change going on. Journaling is also very therapeutic in the sense that as you write, that rhythmic movement of your hand, putting, pen on paper, really relaxes you because it takes you away from everything. You are so concentrated on putting sentences and words on paper that you forget about everything else. And after a writing session, you will start feeling calmer and more relaxed. I also found that just that whole putting it out there also just relaxes me. And I like using different styles of journaling. I like to do a bit of art journaling where I make a few sketches, or I do a collage, or I just, use words and pictures or images that comes up in my head. Or times I would just, make a collage with different words and different colors. Sometimes I just write. Sometimes I put music lyrics in. I use a lot of different mediums. Find one that appeals to you. Find a method that appeals to you. The thing with journaling is, do it consistently. Get into the habit of doing it either every day or once a week or every weekend, or set a fixed time for yourself, because once you start doing this and once this starts becoming a habit, you will find that you find your voice, you find your inner emotional voice, and you start having more freedom in how you express your emotions. And as you put all these comings and goings that you have in your head and your heart, once you put it on paper, you tend to see the logic, tend to see the patterns in your behavior, in your way of thinking. And that can really be helpful to connect better with yourself and to raise your self-awareness. So yes, I really want you to experiment. I want to encourage you to try this. You can do video journaling. You can do photo journaling. Any ways and means of expression of your emotional inner workings, of your emotional landscape, is going to help you to express and manage your emotions better. So, until we chat again, I want you to keep safe and keep well.